thank the honourable member for his contribution and give the call to the honourable member for Wentworth.
Thank you. If there's a lesson from this year's federal election, is that voters were sick of how politics operated in this country. They were hungry for change and wanted a new politics, one characterised by fairness, integrity, transparency, accountability and by proper process. That's what voters were promised, and that's what we wanted, and that's what they deserved. And that's what we have seen on a number of issues from the new government. In general, they have been consultative and have been guided by proper process. It has been a welcome change. But there's a jarring contrast between those processes of good government and how this government has proceeded with industrial relations reform. Some aspects of this bill are the accumulation of constructive negotiations between employer and employee organisations over a number of years, and I commend those. But others, including compulsory multi-employer bargaining, were not. It is those aspects which failed the government's own test of proper process. These aspects of the bill weren't in Labor's election policy. They were not canvassed at the Jobs and Skills Summit, and they were not subject to consultation. And now they're seeking to guillotine debate and force this bill through this House, without time to understand the bill or talk to those who will be affected or identify unintended consequences. This isn't a way to make policy or pass legislation, particularly not for a policy area like industrial relations, which is notoriously complex. Even well-intentioned changes can end up backfiring, like the Better Off Overall test, which was introduced by Labor in 2018, by Labor in 2008 and is being fixed by Labor in 2022. This is why government legislation needs scrutiny and input from stakeholders from right across the spectrum. Without it, we are going to repeat the mistakes of the past rather than learning from them. It's disappointing that the government has gone down this path so far, but it's not too late for them to do the right thing and change course. Looking at the provisions of the bill, there are some aspects that are really welcome and which I support. I particularly support changes which assist in securing wages for low-paid workers. I was really heartened by Fair Work's recent decision to raise aged care wages by 15% and would love to see it rolled across about other areas in underpaid workforces, particularly in the caring sector. There could be tweaks made to the supported bargaining stream to make it more effective. Defining low-wage workers would help overcome one of the obstacles that has stopped this stream being used in the recent past. But these are quibbles, and I have no wish to delay these parts of the bill. I also strongly support the changes which would make it faster and more certain for enterprise bargains to get approved by Fair Work after they have secured backing from employers and employees. This is crucial. This includes reforms to the Better Off Overall test and removing some impediments to the approvals process. But there are other aspects to the bill which aren't as welcome. The most concerning is changing multi-employer bargaining from a stream where both parties need to opt into a stream to a stream where employees can compel the other side to join a negotiation or an existing agreement spanning other workplaces. Where this occurs, an employer doesn't get to choose whether they want to bargain with other businesses. They don't get to choose which other businesses participate, and they don't have the right to stop their workforce joining in an existing agreement which may not be a good fit for the business. This sort of change should be subject to wider public debate. It is not something that was widely discussed or understood during the election campaign, during the Jobs and Skills Summit, or in subsequent discussions which I or the business community have had with government. It is a basic principle of government that you should engage the community on major reform before embarking upon it. Set out the problem the country faces. Tell us the solution you think is best and why the alternative options are inferior. Make your case. Engage in the debate and convince the community to back your ideas. That's what I want to see, and it's what most Australians want to see. Australians would rather see lasting policy reform than have an industrial relations ping-pong, with each changed government as a coalition undoes Labor's policies and Labor unpicks the coalition's policies. That is no way to run a country. One benefit of a national debate is that people know what to expect and can have their voices heard. It really troubles me that this bill is going to have a huge impact on thousands of smaller businesses around Australia, but most of them aren't even aware that it's coming. I've spoken to business owners, a number of business owners, who simply don't understand the bill or what it means for them. When they learn it could mean that certain decisions affecting their business will be taken away from them and given to their workers or to the Fair Work Commission, they become truly alarmed. And if I was still running a small business, I would be alarmed too. This isn't a piecemeal change, but a transformation about how businesses interact with their staff, particularly smaller businesses. Even experienced industrial relations specialists aren't sure how it's going to work in practice, which means no business person can possibly know. I don't think anybody knows, not even the decision-makers in the government. Small business owners have made it through incredibly difficult times of COVID, gotten past lockdowns and restrictions, only to be faced with labour shortages, rapidly rising interest rates, rapidly rising electricity prices, a potential recession, and they've struggled to hold on through perhaps the most difficult commercial environment in this country's history, and it's about to get a whole lot harder for them. We can do much better than this. The best thing the government can do today is to split the bill into two parts. One part could encompass the support for higher wages in low-wage industries, along with measures that have been subject to broad consultation and are generally agreed on all sides. This could easily pass the parliament, immediately supporting immediate wage rises for low-income workers, which I 100% support. The other part of the bill could undergo further consultation and scrutiny, ensuring legitimate concerns are heard and resolved, and exploring all the possible consequences of the bill. This would not hold up wage rises for low-income workers, but it would be a sensible approach to contentious reform. That is why I have prepared a second reading amendment to hold back the most contentious parts of the bill until they could undergo appropriate scrutiny. Splitting the bill is the best thing this House could do to improve the IR bill, and so I move a motion in the terms circulated in my name. I will also move substantive amendments to the bill reflecting other concerns. I believe multi-employer bargaining needs to be compulsory. I believe that multi-employer bargaining should not be compulsory or should be voluntary, or if the government insists on its approach, that it changes the common interest and public interest tests so that workplaces cannot be roped into a bargain that has no merit. I also believe that the threshold for small businesses needs to be more than 15 people. A cafe or a retail outlet in Wentworth often has more than 15 employees, but these are not big businesses. They're not Coles or Woolworths, and they should not be treated as though they are. I also believe disputes over flexible work arrangements shouldn't go straight from a discussion between an employer and employee to a fair work arbitration, an exercise that can cost tens of thousands of dollars and ruin the relationship between an employer and employee. Let's put a step in between where both parties can engage in conciliation with guidance and support from Fair Work before we bring in the lawyers. And I believe there should be an independent statutory review of the changes within 12 months to tell if the changes are working as intended. These changes would mitigate some of the harm the bill might impose on our economy, but they're not my preferred approach. My preferred approach would be that the government goes back to first principles with its industrial relations policy and remember that productivity drives wages. There's a lot we can do to accelerate productivity growth, but award modernisation would have to be the top of the list. Make awards simpler. Make awards simpler. Simplicity benefits employees and employers. It means employees can genuinely understand the conditions of their employment and will be able to call out right from wrong. And it means employers can genuinely understand what their employees expect and deserve from them. Under the current system, employees and employers inadvertently breach the same rules all the time. Awards should be simple that this isn't possible. It should be so simple that a 15-year-old working their first job can understand an agreement, can understand their rate of pay and whether their boss is following the rules. That's not currently possible with a general retail award, which runs to more than 100 pages. Mr Speaker, I promise you, if you modernise the award, you will get support in employment, wage and productivity growth in this country. It will not be an easy process, but it will certainly be worthwhile and making lasting impact on this country. As it currently stands, I cannot, in good conscience, support the bill. The policy process has been flawed and the legislation itself is flawed. I think it will harm our economy and the workers that the government wants to support. That's why I've proposed amendments and why, if they're not successful, I will vote to oppose the bill and will be encouraging others to do so.